In today's world, we are constantly pulled in 1,000 directions at once. Emails demand our attention, notifications buzz relentlessly, and meetings fill up every corner of our day. It feels as if being busy is a badge of honor, but in reality, most of this busyness produces very little of lasting value. Deep Work, by Newport, challenges this modern myth. It shows us that the ability to focus without distraction on demanding, meaningful tasks is not only rare but also incredibly valuable. Those who can cultivate this skill rise above the noise, create extraordinary work, and achieve levels of success that others can only dream of. In this book, Newport lays out why deep work matters, how it transforms your professional and personal life, and the practical steps you can take to master it. Introduction. Imagine a world where distractions are constant, where emails, notifications, social media, and endless meetings compete for your attention. In this world, the ability to focus deeply, without interruption, is becoming a rare and valuable skill. Yet, paradoxically, it is precisely this skill that separates the most successful, creative, and fulfilled individuals from the rest. This is the world Cal Newport explores in Deep Work. Newport begins by asking a simple but profound question: what does it mean to truly concentrate on something that matters? He argues that deep work, the ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks, is becoming increasingly rare in today's economy, but it is more important than ever. Those who cultivate this ability can produce work of extraordinary quality, achieve breakthroughs in their careers, and derive profound satisfaction from the act of creation itself. The book is structured around two main ideas: first, the value of deep work, and second, the rules for cultivating it. Newport explains why shallow work, emails, meetings, administrative tasks, dominates modern professional life and why this is a problem. He also makes a compelling case that by mastering deep work, you can dramatically increase both your productivity and your sense of purpose. Through a combination of scientific research, real-world examples, and practical strategies, Newport shows how anyone can train themselves to work deeply, resist distractions, and produce at the highest levels. He shares stories of a wide range of professionals, from writers and computer scientists to CEOs, demonstrating that sustained focus is not a trait reserved for a lucky few, but a skill that can be cultivated with deliberate practice. Key themes emerge immediately. The power of focus. In a world of constant interruptions, those who can focus intensely have a competitive advantage. The cost of distraction. Shallow work dominates, leaving little room for meaningful accomplishments. Deliberate practice. Deep work is like a muscle: the more you exercise it, the stronger it becomes. Meaningful work. Immersive, concentrated effort not only produces better results but also contributes to a greater sense of fulfillment. Part 1, The Idea. Chapter 1, Deep Work is Valuable. In a world filled with noise, distraction, and constant interruption, Cal Newport introduces a concept that feels almost revolutionary: deep work. He describes it as the ability to focus intensely on a task without distraction, to push your cognitive abilities to their limit, and to create something of true value. It is the state in which your mind becomes fully engaged, where you are not merely doing, but truly thinking, processing, and creating. And in a time where shallow tasks dominate our schedules, emails, notifications, messages, scrolling, this ability has become extremely rare, yet incredibly valuable. Newport begins by observing the modern work culture. Most people are busy, but few are truly productive. Many feel they are constantly working, always on, yet they end every day with the uneasy sense that they haven't actually accomplished anything meaningful. This happens because the modern environment rewards shallow work, tasks performed while distracted, requiring little mental effort, easy to replicate, and often endless in nature. Think of responding to messages, attending meetings that could have been an email, or scrolling through social feeds. But real progress, real creation, happens in the deep. To illustrate the value of deep work, Newport introduces examples of individuals who have mastered it. One such example is Carl Jung, the renowned psychologist. At a time when he was shaping the very foundations of modern psychology, Jung built a stone tower in the Swiss countryside, far away from his professional practice in Zurich. This retreat was not a vacation home. It was a place designed explicitly for deep thinking. Hours, days, and weeks at a time, Jung would disconnect from society to enter a state of uninterrupted concentration. And it was in those isolated hours that he developed the ideas that would reshape the study of the mind. Newport argues that every field has people like Jung, individuals who produce work that is not just good but groundbreaking. Their results are not accidents. They are the product of intense, sustained focus. He calls this the deep work hypothesis. The ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare at exactly the same time it is becoming increasingly valuable. Therefore, those who cultivate this skill, and make it the core of their working life, will thrive. And here lies the central truth: deep work is a superpower in the modern age. Newport explains that two major forces define the new economy. 1. The ability to master hard things. 2. The ability to produce at an elite level, in terms of both quality and speed. Both of these require deep concentration. When you learn a new technology, research a complex topic, write a book, design software, build a business strategy, you are pushing your brain into the realm of deep work. This is where skill is built. This is where ideas evolve. This is where value is created. In contrast, shallow work produces very little. It keeps you busy, but not better. Newport brings up the example of high-performing professionals who live by deep work routines. Famous authors who write books before sunrise. Programmers who disappear into hours-long focus sessions. Entrepreneurs who clear their schedule to think deeply about decisions instead of reacting impulsively. They understand something essential. Where your attention goes, your life follows. If your attention is fragmented, your progress will be fragmented. If your attention is deep, your progress will be profound. Newport warns that the world around us is structured to fight against deep concentration. Notifications, entertainment platforms, social media apps, open office layouts, and even corporate work culture all push us toward constant interruption. But he emphasizes that while the world may be moving in this direction, individuals who choose to train themselves in deep work will stand out more than ever. Deep work becomes a competitive edge. A student who learns to study deeply will outperform those constantly distracted. A professional who can learn faster will rise faster. A creator who can produce original work will be irreplaceable. Deep work is not just a productivity method. It is a philosophy, a way of working and living. It is the intentional decision to step away from constant stimulation, to resist the pull of the shallow, and to reclaim the fullness of your own mind. The world is getting noisier. But the people who learn to go quiet and think deeply will shape the future. Chapter 2: Deep Work is Rare. The modern world is filled with glowing screens, buzzing notifications, open workspaces, instant communication, and a non-stop flood of information. It gives the illusion of productivity, activity everywhere, motion everywhere, but beneath that, something significant has been lost. Cal Newport explains that although deep work is incredibly valuable, it is also becoming increasingly rare. And not by accident. Our culture, our workplaces, and our habits have evolved in a way that almost pushes us away from concentration. He begins with a picture of today's typical professional environment. Imagine an office where employees sit in open rooms, constantly visible to each other. Messages pop up on computers. Slack channels never stop. Phones vibrate. Meetings spring up with little purpose. And when someone looks deeply focused, that focus often gets interrupted with a casual tap on the shoulder or the familiar phrase, "Quick question." Productivity has increasingly come to mean being available. Being reachable. Being responsive. The faster you respond to emails or messages, the more engaged you are seen to be. But Newport explains that this is an illusion. Busyness is not the same as productivity. And responsiveness is not the same as value. But companies continue to reward the appearance of work, not the depth of it. The person who rushes around attending meetings seems important. The person who sends dozens of messages looks busy. Yet the one who closes the door and thinks deeply for 3 hours may create something that changes the direction of the company. Still, because deep work is invisible, it is not always recognized or encouraged. Newport calls this the principle of least resistance. Work cultures naturally gravitate toward behaviors that are easiest to measure, easiest to communicate, and easiest to observe. And shallow work is much easier to see than deep work. Imagine 2 employees. One spends the day quietly crafting a complex idea or solution. Another writes dozens of emails, chats in multiple meetings, and moves from conversation to conversation. To the outside world, the second employee looks more active, more social, more useful. The deep worker, however, is doing something that is harder to explain, so their contribution is often overlooked or misunderstood. This cultural pressure makes deep work rare. And the rarity is reinforced even more by the digital age. Social media, news feeds, endless entertainment apps, they are designed not just to distract us, but to train us to expect distraction. The more we jump from one thing to the next, the more our minds adapt to that rhythm. Attention becomes fragmented. Focus becomes uncomfortable. Silence becomes unfamiliar. Newport offers another insight: we have forgotten how to be alone with our thoughts. In moments of stillness, we reach for a phone. In lines, in elevators, in waiting rooms, during breaks, we fill every gap with stimulation. Our attention is being trained to live on the surface. And so, when we finally do sit down to work deeply, the mind resists. It wants novelty. It wants stimulation. It wants something easy. This is why deep work is rare, not because people don't want to do meaningful work, but because the world subtly shapes them away from it through habit, environment, and expectation. The irony is striking: the tools that promise efficiency often destroy depth. The culture that claims to value innovation rewards distraction. The world that praises creativity creates conditions hostile to thinking. But Newport does not present this as a tragedy. He presents it as an opportunity. The rarer a skill becomes, the more valuable it is. When the world rushes toward noise, silence becomes powerful. When attention is scarce, those who control theirs become extraordinary. Deep work is rare because few people choose the difficulty of concentration in a world offering constant ease. Few choose silence when distraction is always available. Few choose depth when shallow input feels more immediately rewarding. And yet, history shows us that almost every significant breakthrough, every masterpiece, every transformative idea, was forged in the quiet moments where the mind sinks beneath the surface. Deep work is rare. But that rarity is not a disadvantage. It is what makes deep work a form of strength. To cultivate it is to separate yourself from the crowd, not by force, not by competition, but simply by choosing to do what the world has forgotten how to do. To think deeply. To protect your attention. To go where most minds no longer go. Chapter 3: Deep Work is Meaningful. There is a moment, sometimes rare, sometimes fleeting, when we are so absorbed in what we are doing that the rest of the world seems to fade away. Our sense of time shifts. Our attention narrows. Noise becomes irrelevant. And our work feels not like effort, but like an expression of something deeply human. Cal Newport calls this deep work. But in this chapter, he argues something far greater: deep work is not only productive, it is spiritually meaningful. It touches something central to who we are. To understand this, Newport asks us to consider what it means to feel fulfilled. Not entertained. Not stimulated. But truly fulfilled, the quiet, steady satisfaction of knowing your energy has gone into something worthwhile. Most people, today, rarely feel this. They feel busy, but empty. Active, but ungrounded. Surrounded by noise, but disconnected from meaning. Deep work is the remedy to that emptiness. The craftsman and the sense of the sacred in work. Newport introduces a powerful example: the craftsman. Picture a woodworker standing in his workshop, surrounded by sawdust and tools polished from years of use. When he places his hands on a piece of wood, he does not rush. He is focused, attentive, deliberate. Every cut, every grain he examines, every shaping movement is precise. He is not simply making a table or a chair, he is bringing something into being. And during this process, his mind is calm. There is no noise. No constant switching of tasks. No rapid shifting of attention. He is immersed. Newport explains that the craftsman is not fulfilled because the work is old-fashioned or artistic. He is fulfilled because the work demands his full attention. Human beings feel meaning when they apply themselves completely to a task, without fragmentation. This is not just about craft, it is about psychology. The human mind craves depth. When a person works deeply, they are in harmony with the structure of their own brain. When they work shallowly, switching tasks, skimming information, responding instead of thinking, they are at odds with themselves. It is like breathing irregularly. You can do it, but it will never feel right. The neuroscience of meaning. Newport references the research of psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who studied people across professions, cultures, and backgrounds. What he discovered was profound. People feel greatest satisfaction during states of flow, periods of deep, focused engagement. Flow happens when your abilities are stretched to meet a meaningful challenge. Too easy, and you're bored. Too hard, and you're anxious. But just the right level of difficulty, and the mind clicks into place. It becomes absorbed. This absorption is not just enjoyable, it creates meaning. A distracted life is a shallow life. A shallow life is not one of suffering, but one of numbness, a quiet erosion of the self. Deep work protects the mind from that erosion. It gives the mind a structure to operate at its fullest capacity. When you are fully present in what you're doing, you are fully present in your life. The problem of the modern condition. But Newport explains that modern life is designed to prevent this. Technology, multitasking, constant connectivity, all of them encourage fragmented attention. The average person checks their phone hundreds of times a day. Not because they choose to, but because their mind has been trained to avoid stillness. In fact, the moment things become quiet, in the car, in the elevator, sitting alone, the mind seeks distraction. It grabs for stimulation as if silence were uncomfortable. This constant stimulation weakens the mind's ability to concentrate. When the mind loses the ability to concentrate, it loses the ability to build meaning. Distraction is not just an inconvenience, it is a danger. It prevents you from ever being fully present in your own life. Newport points out something almost tragic. Many people live entire years without experiencing deep work even once. Their days become a blur of tasks, messages, tabs, screens, and half-finished thoughts. Time passes, but nothing anchors it. Nothing leaves a mark. Without depth, life becomes a series of moments you barely inhabit. Depth and identity. Deep work is meaningful because it roots identity. When you create something with full attention, it becomes evidence of who you are. A programmer who builds an elegant system. A writer who shapes an idea into words. A scientist who discovers a new understanding. A student who wrestles with a concept until it finally makes sense. Each of these acts says, "Here is what I can do when I give myself fully." Shallow work leaves no trace of self. Deep work leaves a signature. The world is full of noise, but very few things carry weight. Meaning is found not in motion, but in mastery. The internal silence of deep work. When a person works deeply, something else happens, something quiet, something difficult to describe. The mind stops wandering. Self-criticism fades. Time loses its shape. The world feels farther away. You don't think about yourself. You simply are. The mind, fully engaged, becomes a place of stillness. And in that stillness, meaning grows. This is why monks meditate. Why musicians practice for hours. Why thinkers retreat into solitude. Why creators guard their time fiercely. Not because they are avoiding life, but because they are stepping into the fullness of it. A life built on depth. Newport ends the idea of this chapter with a realization. You do not find meaning by seeking it directly. You create meaning by immersing yourself in something worth your time. Not everything deserves deep work. But the things that do, deserve everything. Your best work, your best thinking, your most powerful contributions. They all wait behind the door of sustained attention. To open that door, you must choose depth over distraction. Presence over noise. Creation over reaction. Deep work is meaningful because it allows you to live a life that is felt, not just observed from a distance. To work deeply is to live deeply. Part 2, The Rules. Rule number 1, work deeply. The modern world is full of shifting attention, blinking notifications, open chat windows, tabs stacked like layers of dust. And yet, the mind does not thrive in fragments. Deep work requires not only desire, it requires structure. Cal Newport explains that the ability to work deeply is not a personality trait or a natural gift. It is something you build, deliberately, with systems, routines, and boundaries. This chapter asks a powerful question. If deep work is so valuable, why don't we live lives organized around it? The answer is simple, because the world encourages the opposite. Distraction is the default. Focus is the exception. To work deeply, one must fight for it, deliberately and repeatedly. Newport begins by introducing a truth that many people resist. Deep work cannot depend on willpower alone. You cannot trust yourself to simply focus harder. Willpower is limited. It depletes throughout the day. If your environment, habits, and schedule do not support concentration, distraction will win. So, to work deeply, you must shape your life around it. You must create rituals, not dramatic, rigid ones, but structured and meaningful patterns that signal to your mind. Now we go deep. The ritual of beginning. Every deep work session should start the same way, not spontaneously, not casually, but intentionally. This could be as simple as sitting in the same chair with the same drink at the same time each day. Or walking to a certain room. Or closing the door and placing your phone in another location. The point is not magic, it is conditioning. The brain learns to associate certain cues with deep focus. Just as monks ring a bell to signal prayer, a worker must create signals for depth. A deep work ritual often includes a location dedicated to focus. A set time window that is protected. A clearly defined task to work on. A metric for progress, word count, code completed, pages solved. This reduces decision-making. The fewer decisions required, the deeper you go. You must decide your depth philosophy. Newport explains that different people can structure deep work differently depending on their life responsibilities, personality, or job demands. He introduces 4 depth philosophies, not to choose one correct way, but to identify the rhythm that fits your life. 1. The monastic philosophy. This is when deep work becomes the core of your life. Think of a scholar who spends nearly all their day in focus, eliminating distraction entirely. This is rare. It requires high control over schedule and environment. 2. The bimodal philosophy. This involves dividing long stretches, days or weeks, into time for deep work, followed by periods of openness. A writer may spend 2 weeks in deep isolation, then return to normal communication afterward. 3. The rhythmic philosophy. This is the most practical for most people. You schedule deep work daily, often in the same time block. For example, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. every day, no interruption. This makes deep work part of daily routine. 4. The journalistic philosophy. You fit deep work into any gap available. This requires advanced skill, the ability to drop instantly into focus. Most people should avoid this until trained. The importance of environment. Newport emphasizes that your environment should support your intention, not oppose it. A cluttered desk, open notifications, loud surroundings, these quietly erode focus. He references intentional workspaces, monasteries, research labs, writing cabins, as examples of environments designed to protect attention. This is not romantic, it is practical. If your surroundings are full of distraction, your mind stays shallow. One key principle. Make it easier to focus than to be distracted. This may mean turning off Wi-Fi during deep sessions. Working at a library instead of a living room. Using noise cancellation. Keeping your phone physically distant. The mind follows the environment. Grand gestures. Newport introduces the idea of a grand gesture, a bold move that signals seriousness to the mind. It does not need to be expensive, but it must be meaningful. Examples include J.K. Rowling renting a hotel suite to finish Harry Potter. Bill Gates going on think weeks to isolate completely. A grand gesture shocks the mind out of its autopilot state. It declares, "This work matters." Sometimes, to go deep, you must step outside your normal patterns. The shutdown ritual. Deep work is not only about how you begin, but also how you end. The mind needs closure to rest, to reset for the next day. Newport insists. Your workday must end with intention. No lingering tasks, no unclosed thoughts, no vague worries. A shutdown ritual could include reviewing your task list. Choosing tomorrow's deep work focus. Writing down unfinished concerns so the mind can release them. This allows your mind to stop working when work is over. Without this, stress leaks into your personal life, leaving you mentally exhausted. When the workday ends, say aloud, as Newport does. Shutdown complete. It sounds simple. But it signals the mind to rest. The core message of rule number 1. Deep work is not a mood. It is not something you wait to feel ready for. It is a practice, supported by systems. To work deeply, you must protect your attention. Build rituals. Reduce decision-making. End the day with closure. Make depth your default, not your exception. Deep work becomes possible when your life is shaped to serve it. In a world built to scatter your attention, the ability to work deeply is not just a skill. It is an act of rebellion. It is choosing to create rather than react. To build rather than consume. To live with intention rather than drift through noise. Those who work deeply do fewer things. But they do them fully. And they produce work that lasts. Rule number 2, embrace boredom. There is a moment familiar to nearly everyone. You are sitting in silence, maybe waiting in line, maybe standing alone in your room, maybe staring out a window, and suddenly, without thinking, your hand reaches for your phone. The gesture is automatic, almost unconscious. The mind has become allergic to stillness. Cal Newport argues that this automatic escape, this inability to tolerate boredom, is the great enemy of deep work. Because if the mind is trained to constantly seek stimulation, it will not be able to sustain concentration when truly needed. To work deeply, you must first learn how to be bored. This may sound strange. But boredom is not the problem. Our reaction to boredom is the problem. We live in a world that provides instant relief from even a second of discomfort. The moment your mind feels the slightest itch for novelty, a pause, a silence, a moment without stimulation, you have 100 distractions available: social media, news feeds, videos, messages, games, quick entertainment. Because of this, the mind never learns to sit still. It becomes restless. It becomes anxious in silence. It becomes addicted to interruption. Newport says bluntly, if you cannot resist distraction, you cannot do deep work. Deep work requires long, uninterrupted focus, and the mind must be trained for that the same way the body must be conditioned for physical performance. The brain as a pattern-seeking engine. Newport explains that the brain naturally seeks novelty. It is wired to scan, to watch for new stimuli, a trait inherited from ancient survival instincts. But technology has amplified novelty into a constant stream. Now, the brain never rests. It jumps from one thing to another. New message. New notification. New headline. New post. New ping. This trains the brain to expect interruption, to crave it. Which means, when you finally sit down to focus, the mind rebels. It searches for a hit of stimulation. Not because the task is uninteresting, but because the mind has been conditioned to avoid quiet effort. To work deeply, you must break this conditioning. You must train your mind like a muscle. Newport compares attention to physical strength. You do not become strong by wanting to be strong, you become strong by training your body, consistently, through effort and discomfort. Likewise, you do not become focused by wishing for focus, you become focused by repeatedly practicing concentration, especially when it is uncomfortable. A mind that cannot tolerate boredom is a mind that cannot focus. So Newport proposes a form of mental training. Practice doing nothing. Practice sitting with your thoughts. Practice silence. This is not meditation in a spiritual sense, but discipline in attention. The next time you stand in line, resist reaching for your phone. The next time you walk outside, leave your device behind. The next time you sit in silence, let the silence stay. This is the first step in strengthening attention. The ability to focus must be trained before it can be used. Deep work sessions do not begin when you sit at your desk. They begin in every moment of the day where you either strengthen or weaken your attention. If your mind is constantly switching tasks, constantly stimulating itself, constantly jumping from one thought to another, then when you need to go deep, your mind will not obey you. This is why Newport advises scheduling both deep work and breaks from focus. Most people do the opposite. They work in short bursts and take long, accidental distraction breaks. Newport says you must reverse the pattern. When you are working, work completely. When you are resting, rest completely. Do not blur the two. This prevents the brain from getting addicted to quick escapes. Learning to let the mind wander intentionally. Newport also describes the power of productive meditation, a practice where you walk, shower, eat, or perform a simple physical task while turning a single idea or problem over in your mind. This forces the mind to focus even when movement is happening. It strengthens the ability to maintain depth across time, instead of constantly resetting attention. You are teaching the mind to hold on to one thought without escaping to stimulation. At first, the mind fights. It wants to drift. It wants to check something. It wants easier input. But with repetition, the mind strengthens. It becomes capable of sustained thought. This is the foundation of deep creativity. What you are training yourself to do. By embracing boredom, you are teaching your brain that not every craving must be answered. You are breaking the addiction to stimulation. You are training yourself to sit with silence without panic. Let thoughts settle instead of scatter. Stay with single tasks long enough to produce meaning. Control your attention instead of reacting to everything. Return to depth even when distraction tempts you. This training is uncomfortable. But growth always is. Every time you resist reaching for your phone, you are not denying pleasure, you are building power. The power to think. The power to create. The power to stay. The essence of rule number 2. Deep work is not something that happens when you want it to. It happens because the mind has been conditioned to stay. To embrace boredom is to reclaim control of your attention. To reclaim your attention is to reclaim your mind. To reclaim your mind is to reclaim your life. In silence, the mind becomes sharp. In stillness, the mind gains clarity. In boredom, the mind becomes strong. Those who cannot be alone with their thoughts will never know their own thoughts fully. To do great work in a noisy world, you must first learn to be silent inside yourself. Rule number 3, quit social media. Imagine sitting down to begin your work, the kind of work that matters. You open your laptop with intention. Your thoughts are clear. You're ready to sink into a state of deep concentration. But then, your phone buzzes. Not with a phone call. Not with anything urgent. Just a soft little ping that says, "Look here. Something might be interesting." Maybe it's a notification from Instagram. Maybe it's a new video suggestion on TikTok. Maybe it's a message on WhatsApp or Messenger or Facebook. You tell yourself, "I'll just check for a second." And without realizing it, your attention breaks. That fragile state of mental focus, the one that takes 20 to 30 minutes to build, shatters in 2 seconds. This is the silent cost of social media. It does not simply take your time. It steals the quality of your mind. The rarest resource. Cal Newport argues that in the modern world, the most valuable skill is not intelligence. Not creativity. Not even talent. It is the ability to focus without distraction. But this skill is becoming rare. Because we are training our minds, day after day, to exist in a constant state of fragmented attention. Social media thrives on this fragmentation. Every platform is engineered to keep you scrolling, clicking, refreshing. Not because they want to connect the world, but because your attention is the product they sell. The mind as a muscle. Your brain adapts to what you repeatedly do. If you train it for deep concentration, it becomes sharp, calm, and powerful. If you train it for quick stimulation and instant entertainment, it becomes restless, hungry, impatient. So when you try to do meaningful work, writing, studying, planning, building, thinking deeply, your brain no longer knows how to stay. It has learned to flee to the next hit of stimulation. This is why many people say, "I want to focus, but my mind just won't sit still." Their mind can't stay still. Because they trained it not to. Social media is not neutral. People often say, "I only use social media for fun. It's harmless. I don't spend that much time on it." But Newport explains that even small usage rewires your mind. Social media teaches your brain to expect constant novelty, fast emotional rewards, low-effort entertainment, endless stimulation. Deep work requires the opposite. Patience, stillness, concentration, mental endurance. These two mindsets cannot coexist easily. The craftsman approach. Cal Newport suggests a powerful filter for deciding whether to keep a platform. Keep a tool only if it provides substantial, meaningful benefit to things you care deeply about. This doesn't mean, "Does it amuse me? Do I like it? Do I feel connected there?" It means, "Does it materially improve my craft, growth, or purpose?" If the answer is no, it does not deserve your time. The fear of missing out. People hesitate to quit social media because they fear missing opportunities, being forgotten, losing connection, falling behind. But Newport offers a blunt truth. If your work is excellent, you will not be forgotten. If your skill is rare, people will seek you out. If your contribution is meaningful, you do not need to broadcast constantly. The world notices value, not visibility. A 30-day disconnection test. To see the truth, Newport suggests a real-world experiment. 1. Quit social media for 30 days. 2. Do not announce it. 3. Live your life normally. 4. After 30 days, ask, "Did my professional or personal life suffer in any important way?" If the answer is no, the platform was not essential. If the answer is yes, you may bring it back, but use it intentionally. Most people are shocked to discover that nothing collapses. Their life becomes calmer. Their mind becomes clearer. They return to themselves. Key points. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Social media monetizes your attention by distracting you. Every small distraction weakens your ability to think deeply. The mind becomes what it repeatedly practices. Deep work requires removing digital environments built for stimulation. You don't need to be everywhere, you need to be excellent somewhere. Rule number 4, drain the shallows. In our modern professional lives, there is an insidious trap that quietly consumes our energy, time, and potential, the trap of shallow work. Cal Newport calls it the swamp of triviality, and unless we confront it, it will steadily drown the fertile fields where deep, meaningful work grows. Shallow work is everything that seems urgent but is ultimately inconsequential, replying to endless emails, attending meetings that produce nothing, filling out reports that no one reads, or scrolling through notifications under the guise of research. On the surface, these tasks feel important, they create motion, activity, and visibility. But in reality, they produce almost no lasting value. Imagine your workday as a vast landscape. On one side, there's a rich, sunlit meadow. This is the domain of deep work. Here, uninterrupted focus allows your mind to generate insights, creative breakthroughs, and high-value results that can distinguish you in your field. On the other side lies a shadowy swamp, the shallow work. It expands quietly, filling every crack in your schedule, drowning out the potential for real achievement. Draining this swamp is not easy, it requires deliberate action, planning, and, most importantly, courage. The problem with shallow work. Newport emphasizes that shallow work is deceptive. It feels productive because it is immediate and visible. You send an email, check off a minor task, or attend a meeting, and you see progress, on the surface. But this type of work is low leverage, meaning it contributes very little to the long-term goals that define true success. The paradox is stark: the busier you are with shallow work, the less time you have for the deep work that actually moves the needle. The busyness trap: people often equate being busy with being productive. Newport warns against this mindset. Busy work provides a false sense of accomplishment. True productivity is measured by the impact of your output, not the volume of your activity. Invisible costs: shallow work is not just a time sink, it fragments attention. Switching between tasks and constantly reacting to small interruptions reduces the brain's ability to focus. Cognitive energy spent on trivial matters leaves less for complex problem solving. Strategies to drain the shallows. Newport offers concrete strategies to reclaim your time and attention. These methods are designed to limit shallow work without abandoning responsibility. 1. Time audit. Begin by observing where your time actually goes. Track every hour for a week. Many professionals are shocked to discover that 60 to 80% of their workday is consumed by shallow tasks. Awareness is the first step toward control. 2. Schedule every minute. Adopt a rigorous time-blocking approach. Every hour, every half hour, even every 15 minutes of your day should have a purpose. This doesn't mean your life becomes robotic. It means you consciously allocate time for high-value work while acknowledging low-value tasks exist but are limited. 3. Set shallow work limits. Newport suggests restricting shallow work to a defined number of hours per week. This scarcity forces discipline. If you know you only have 2 hours for emails or meetings, you approach them strategically, focusing only on what truly matters. 4. Protect deep work blocks. Treat deep work sessions like sacred appointments. Close your office door, silence notifications, and create an environment where your mind can enter a state of flow. The longer and more uninterrupted the session, the more profound the results. 5. Say no courageously. Many shallow tasks come from external pressures, managers, colleagues, societal expectations. Newport stresses the importance of learning to say no. Declining a meeting, delegating minor tasks, or avoiding unnecessary commitments is not laziness, it is strategic prioritization. Stories and examples. To illustrate, Newport shares real-world examples. Consider a senior software engineer at a large tech company. For years, she spent her day reacting to emails, attending meetings, and generating reports. Her calendar was packed, and she was constantly doing work, but nothing she produced had a lasting impact. After implementing strict limits on shallow work, 2 hours per day for emails and meetings, she reserved long, uninterrupted periods for deep coding and problem solving. Within weeks, she began creating solutions that her team had never imagined, contributing innovations that directly affected the company's bottom line. Similarly, Newport describes a law firm partner who realized that much of his schedule was consumed by client calls and administrative approvals. By delegating minor tasks and scheduling deep work sessions early in the morning, he drastically improved both his creativity and efficiency, while reducing stress. Psychological shifts required. Draining the shallows is not only a structural change, it requires a mindset shift. Many professionals feel compelled to be busy at all times, as if visibility equals value. Overcoming this requires courage. You must accept the discomfort of saying no, of appearing less responsive, and of resisting the social pressure to always be available. Yet, it is precisely this discipline that allows deep work to flourish. Focus on impact, not activity. Ask yourself, does this task produce something valuable or lasting? If not, minimize it. Embrace the scarcity of time. Treat deep work as a scarce, precious resource. Protect it. Redefine success. Success comes not from being seen as busy, but from producing work that matters. Key takeaways. Shallow work is unavoidable, but it should be tightly controlled. Conduct a time audit to understand where your energy goes. Limit shallow work to specific windows of time. Guard deep work blocks as sacred, uninterrupted periods. Courageously say no to tasks that do not produce meaningful results. True productivity is measured by results, not visible activity. In the end, draining the shallows is not about eliminating minor tasks altogether. It is about reclaiming control over your attention and making deliberate choices about where to invest your mental energy. By cutting the trivial and protecting the important, you transform your work from ordinary to extraordinary. When you finally clear the swamp of shallow tasks, your mind has the freedom to dive deep, where focus, creativity, and real achievement reside. Conclusion. In the final analysis, deep work teaches us that the ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks is one of the most valuable skills we can cultivate in today's world. It is not enough to simply stay busy. Real achievement comes from concentrated, purposeful effort that produces work of lasting value. By embracing Newport's principles, working deeply, embracing boredom, saying no to distractions, and draining shallow tasks, we can reclaim our time, sharpen our skills, and elevate our professional and personal lives. The book reminds us that depth is not just a productivity tool, but a pathway to mastery, creativity, and fulfillment. Those who commit to deep work will find themselves accomplishing more in less time, producing higher quality results, and experiencing a profound sense of satisfaction that comes from truly meaningful work. In a world full of constant interruptions and superficial tasks, cultivating the ability to work deeply is not just an advantage, it is the key to standing out, achieving greatness, and creating a legacy of value that lasts far beyond the noise of the present.